Hey everybody, welcome to the show Board Game Reviews. This video is part of a series of videos looking at Dawn of the Zeds 3rd edition. In this specific video, I'm going to give you my final opinion, my review of the game. Now, if you're just looking for a quick overview, want to learn how to play the game, or you want to see some sample gameplay, check out the other videos in the series. After the break, I'm going to come back and give you my final opinions on Dawn of the Zeds 3rd edition. Dawn of the Zeds is a tower defense game that plays basically for 1 to 4 players as a cooperative game, or for 2 to 5 players as a competitive game. And the basic idea is this is a pure tower defense game. Now, the simple mechanics of the game is that the players are trying to protect the town center, and as the game goes on, the bad guys, the zombies, are going to be tracking in on all these tracks. And if any of these zombies ever make it to the town center unchecked by the heroes are instantly going to lose the game. Additionally, there's also some chaos that's going to be added to the board. If there's too much chaos ever added to the board and you don't have any more chaos tokens added to the board, the heroes are also going to lose the game. Now, the way the heroes are going to win the game is if they manage to survive an event deck. Surviving an event deck and surviving the final ending card is basically the only way you're going to win the game. And then you're going to add up your score and see an epilogue and see if your epilogue is really good, semi-good, not so good, or pretty darn horrible based on your score and just how well you did protecting the city. So that's the theme of the game. But the interesting thing about Dawn of the Zeds is we have a marketplace that seems to get very, very crowded on certain themes. We are very oversaturated on Cthulhu-style games. We're very oversaturated on zombie-style games. And we're very oversaturated on trade in the Mediterranean-style games. So it's very nice to see some games that are going to do things just a little bit differently. Now, a lot of our current zombie games out there have more of a super Hollywood tank girl or something like style of gameplay where it's you are going to be doing some super duper crazy things. You're going to have heroes riding around on roller skates, wielding twin chainsaws or super Uzis or katanas going out there attacking different things. But you have a lot of these zombie games that really fit that more super heroic theme for the zombie themes games. You don't have a lot of zombie games that are going to more match the 28 Days Later or the classic Romero films, and that's one thing I really do like about Dawn of the Zeds. This is much more of a classic Romero film versus more of a comical Zombieland style game or any kind of one of those themes that you look at there. This is a theme that you actually don't see that often. Yes, you see a lot of zombie games, but a lot of them are more the more cartoony style zombie. This is more of what you think from a 28 Days Later, or again, like I said, a classic Romero film. In this game, the zombies are out to eat you, destroy you, totally obliterate you, and this game has no remorse. It's going to attack you, tear you apart, and rip you apart, and that's just going to be in the first round of the game. But one of the cool things about this game is the fact that this game has multiple different playing modes and multiple different difficulties, which can be very good because, like I said, this game can be very, very brutal. You can play this game on the very easy, the blue or the green levels, and there's some really good interaction, and especially even on the green level, which is level 2 Apocalypse level, you can still get a lot of mechanics, almost all the mechanics of the game, and still feel like you have a pretty darn good chance of at least surviving or maybe possibly even pulling out a lucky win in this game. But if the game is starting to get a little bit too, I don't want to say easy because the game never really gets easy, but if you ever get to the point where you're feeling like you're getting a decent amount of wins, there are a lot of mechanics, a lot of ways that you make the game much more challenging, especially if you flip this board over to the other side where you start getting 5 tracks, and that 5th track, the cabbage track, is even more challenging and even more brutal. And that adds more cards to the game. And that's really another really cool thing about this game is the amount of replay that you get in this box. Now, the basic box comes with a whole bunch of event cards. And the nice thing about this game is as you start getting up higher in the difficulty levels, you're going to start adding more and more and more cards to the game that you have available to you. But even though you're adding more cards to the game, you're not always playing with all these cards every single time you play the game, which means you're building this event deck from a large selection of cards, but it's going to give you a lot of replay and a lot of variety because you're not going to get the same cards every single time you play the game. You can look at the fact that we just played, in my sample gameplay video, we're playing the very short version of the game, which only uses 21 cards. So you look at the 21 cards that came with that, you see this very, very thin amount of cards right here. And these are all the cards I had still left over that we could have still added to the game to add more variety, especially if we would have played on a harder difficulty level. You would have seen that we have a lot of variety in the way the game plays there. You also have a lot of variety in the amount of heroes that come with the game. I mean, you look at the basic heroes that we had just available for this game that we have in our sample gameplay. Then you look at all these extra heroes that we can add to the game. Again, you're going to start with 4 heroes every time you play the game, plus one superheroic civilian unit, but look at all these extra units that you have available to you, adding more variety, and again, adding extra replay to the game. Again, you have your fate deck. Look at your fate deck. You see the fate cards we had involved in this, but look at all these extra fate cards we could have added to the game. Again, a really cool thing about this game is the supreme amount of replay value that you get in this box. Multiple difficulty levels, multiple different ways to build your event decks, multiple different ways your heroes are going to come to the game, and yes, if you really want to, you can go all the way up to the level 5, the director's cut, which is an extremely brutal way to play this game, what makes the game so darn challenging. And I haven't even covered one thing that I haven't really talked about in this video series at all, the fact that you can play this game competitively. Now, you can have one player who can take control of the zombies and use them against the other players. That makes either a 2-player game or one all the way up to versus 4 style player game. Now, one little caveat about the one versus others way of playing this game is I don't think this game is as fun at the lower difficulty levels when you have a Zed player, somebody controlling the Zeds. I think if you're going to play that way, you want to at least start on the level 3, which is the yellow level, which starts including the super secret weapons, because it also gives the Zeds player the ability to start having their own anti-heroes who are trying to bring about the zombie apocalypse. So that adds a lot more variety. So when you're playing versus a Zeds player, there's a little bit less variety in the amount of different difficulty levels you can play, which you kind of lose when you go from the solo or the cooperative versus a competitive play. But don't get me wrong, the game is still enjoyable as a competitive game. Now, having said that, I don't think the game is at its best as a competitive game. I think this game truly shines as a cooperative game. And I'm going to take it one step further to say that this game truly shines even more as a solo game. This game to me is a lot like Nemo's War, another game from Victory Point Games, which is one of those games that's just really enjoyable to play this game solo. This is one of those games that I would happily play anytime solo or play with another friend. I don't think that I get as much enjoyment out of this game when I start hitting the 4-player cooperative. Not because the game is not fun, the game is still fun. I just think that the game can start getting a little bit more brutal, which is the next point I want to talk about, which is the luck factor in this game. This game has a brutal, horrible, terrible, it hates you level of brutal level. I'm going to say brutal one more time just to let you know it's brutal level of luck factor that can creep up in this game. Now, there's multiple different things that can cater to the luck factor in this game. First of all, you have the randomness of the dice whenever you have to go into combats, because there's really no major dice mitigation in this game, which is one thing I would like to see, and I'll talk about that in just a second. But there's no dice mitigation when it comes to combat. If you roll snake eyes, things are not going to go in your favor. And if you roll a couple of 2s or 3s or 4s in a row, things are going to start getting really abysmal, and you're going to start seeing the zombies moving closer to the town center. And there's really nothing you can do about it. You can play as smartly as you want, but if the dice are not in your favor, it's really hard to recover from that. And matter of fact, this game can be so darn brutal, and I didn't show it in the gameplay, and you don't really get to see it in the gameplay, but you can actually get really brutalized by the infection track on a horrible, horrible level. Let me show you what can happen and just show you how random these dice can be and how much that can create a pain. Let's say your infection track gets all the way up to level 13. Not a good thing, but it's something that could be survivable, right? So you're going to reach in the bag, you're going to go ahead and pull out your super zombie. It's going to appear on a fate track. You're going to flip over a fate card and see what we get. And we're going to see if this guy's going to pop up in the forest. Uh-oh, he's going to pop up in the forest right here. And a whole bunch of bad things are going to happen. And then we're going to roll the dice to see how the infection track goes down. Let's say we roll snake eyes to see how the infection track's going to go down. It's going to go down from a 13 down to 11. This fight right here is going to raise it back up to 1. And if we happen to kill a fleeing villager, guess what? It's going to spike again. And you guessed it, we're going to get another super bad guy who's going to come out on the track. So things like that can be really brutal. And then it gets even more brutal if you manage to survive that somehow, and your next card happens to be something like, oh, I don't know, a card like Brains or something like that. And then you're going to look at it and go, okay, I just had to survive a double spawn plague. I had to survive a Brains event. And you're going to look at the state of the board and go, yeah, there's no way I can win this game. It doesn't matter how well I can play in this game. There's current board status from the stuff that just happened, just made a game that's impossible for me to win. And that's kind of an unfortunate thing. That's kind of a negative for this game. And it's something I would really hope that they would find a way to start finding different ways to mitigate the luck in the game. Now, there are some rules in the back of the rule book that tell you different ways that you decrease the challenge of the game, but I don't have a problem with the challenge of this game. The challenge of the game is something I actually really, really like. I enjoy the challenge. I enjoy the fact that the game is trying to be brutal. I want a Romero-style zombie game, and this game has that in spades. But what it doesn't have in spades is the ability to control the luck. Yes, you can go ahead and look at these optional rules, which can make the game a little bit simpler, but I don't want simpler. I want less random. And unfortunately, that randomness can be a little brutal. And that's one thing I have to say about this game, and that's one of the biggest warnings I have to give about this game. I can sit here and tell you that I enjoy this game greatly. I can sit here and tell you that this is probably the best Romero-style zombie-themed game that's on the market. I can tell you that this is one of the best solo games out there if you're looking for a zombie-themed game. But I'd also be lying to you if I told you that this isn't a game for everybody, because this is not a game for everybody. Even if you like solo games, even if you like challenging games, even if you like difficult games, you have to be one of those players who's willing to accept the randomness of luck, because luck is going to creep up in this game. Whether it's going to be the dice or just not going to be in your favor, or whether you're just going to get a whole bunch of event cards in a row that are just not going to be in your favor. You can literally go from an infection to a brains card and you go, yeah, I'm doomed. There's no way I'm going to recover from this. And unfortunately, it's kind of a negative about the game, and it's one of those things that I highly, highly want to impress upon people before they decide if this is a game they want to pick up. You need to decide if you're okay with randomness of luck. Now, I personally am starting to think about, I'm wondering if there's different ways that we can learn to add some extra mechanics to this game that actually allow you to mitigate luck. What I've been kind of playing around with, and I haven't played it to any effective level to see if this is really something that's going to work or anything like that, is starting to think that maybe we can add a rule to the game where if we spend a certain amount of supplies, we can do a reroll on the dice, or maybe we can spend a certain amount of supplies, which will allow us to peek at the next event card. Because in this game, like I said, it's a perfect storm of just the randomness of the dice and the randomness of the event card that comes up next as the one thing that can create the challenges to this game. It takes what I consider what could have been an excellent game and brings it down to the level of being a good game. This game could have been an excellent game if there was just one little way that we could add to the game to mitigate the luck. I don't want it easier. Don't misconstrue what I'm saying. I enjoy a cooperative game that's going to kick your butt and it's going to kick you in the teeth and make you think about your decisions every single turn. It's why I don't enjoy Pandemic. Pandemic for me is such a game that's too easy. It's pretty much a game that I've pretty much figured out at this point. Most people, when they want to play Pandemic, I'll play it because I know people enjoy it, but it's not a game that I'm ever going to choose to play because for me, Pandemic's too easy. I want a brutal, challenging cooperative game, and that's what this game is. But I don't want brutal cooperative, or I don't want brutal cooperative games just because it's brutal, because of the luck of the dice. I want it to kick my butt because the game is playing better than me, not because luck is rearing its ugly head. Now, there are some ways to mitigate the luck, and some of them actually feel more like metagaming. I'm not a huge fan of some of them, such as knowing that you never want to be in the mines during the third act because there's a card in there that makes the mines collapse. Anybody who's in there is going to take a lot of damage, so that's a bad thing. There's also a card that's going to pop up that's going to affect the nuclear plant, and I know which act that card is going to come out, so I make sure I'm never in the nuclear plant when that comes out. So there's different cards out there that we know cause bad problems, and again, the luck of when those comes out can really influence things. But again, this is definitely a game that does reward skill. The skill of knowing when those cards come out, knowing when you need to go after resources, knowing when you need to protect your resources, knowing where you need to build barricades, knowing the flow of the game, and knowing that how this game will start ramping up, and again, just by tracking the action, and knowing that Act 2 is usually more forgiving than Act 3. Act 3 is usually more forgiving than Act 4, and eventually those National Guards are going to come out there and be a little bit of respite to help you survive just a little bit longer. So again, there is some definite skill to this game. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to lie and say there's not a lot of skill to this game. But I'm definitely going to say there's just a little bit of luck and a little bit of randomness that pops in this game. And when it pops out, it can be brutal, especially when it hits you multiple times in a row. Now, I do want to give Victory Point Games a huge thumbs up here for the components. They did a phenomenal job here with the components. Yes, this is a game that does not have miniatures, and I know a lot of us are getting spoiled by miniatures, but this is a game where I don't want miniatures for. The nice thing about not having miniatures means that this game can be purchased for $50, which is a phenomenal price for the amount of replay you get in this game. You can play this game dozens of times and have a different gameplay every single time you play again. Whether you're playing on the same board or flipping over, just because the way the event cards are going to come out, the way the fate cards are going to come out, the way you're going to have different heroes, and the way these tracks are all going to advance. So there are so many things in this game that are going to add to the replay, but the components themselves are really darn good. They did a phenomenal job of adding a whole bunch of hints and resources and notes and stuff like that to make sure that this game is easy to play, comparatively considering how rich the rules are for this game. Because there is a lot going on in this game. There's a lot of persnickety little rules that have some certain things that can pop up sometimes, but they did a great job of creating a lot of components to help you with those things. For example, the barricades have nice reminders on you to let you know there's column shifts. Every one of these heroes has a certain amount of markers letting you know how many hit points they have left, so you never forget about that. You get player action tokens for all of our players, and some of the player action tokens are one-time use only, say removed from the game once they're used. You get these nice handy-dandy charts here. It shows you how to do the combat. There's a turn order that's in the game. There's a nice chart on the back that describes all the components they use for the game, all the super Zeds and everything like that. There's some nice charts in the game board or the rule books themselves, which actually go over the complete phases for the game. So there's lots of cool things to add to the game to help make the experience of learning how to play the game much, much better. And I always want to give applause to any time a company does that, because there's a difference between an okay company, which puts out a game, and there's a difference between a great company that puts out a game with lots of hints, notes, reminders, little things all across the board, little things across these helper aids, these player aids, and all these different things that makes it so much easier to learn the game. I'm so thankful for that. I'm just glad. And again, this isn't a miniatures game. This is a tokens game, but the artwork is great. The cards are great. The nice reminders they put all over here makes it so much easier to learn how to play the game and enjoy the game for what it is. Now, I know I talked about the player count a little bit ago, but again, I just want to reemphasize this is a game that I think is going to play best with the lower player counts. Unfortunately, it can add a little bit to the randomness when we start adding the extra player counts due to the way those zombie pressure events can occur. And I don't think the extra actions you get from extra players can necessarily counteract the extra damage you're going to take from those extra Z pressure events. Basically speaking, you're going to take one more action every single turn for the risk of one or two pressure events every single round popping up. And those pressure events can be random, and they can be adding zombies to the board every single turn. So basically, if you want to make it down to the nuts and bolts, if your extra action you're gaining every turn is not compensating for adding one more zombie to the board every single round, you're losing ground. So adding that extra player isn't helping you, it's making the game harder. Which is why, for me, I think that this game has its magical spot as a one or a two player game. And that even goes for the competitive mode of the game. Even as a competitive mode, I still think the game is best at a one or two player count. You can go up to a 3-player, and if you're looking for a brutal time, yeah, go up to 4 players as a cooperative game, but I truly think this game shines best as a 1 or a 2-player game. The bottom line here, though, is I enjoyed Dawn of the Zeds. I think this is a very well-designed game. I enjoy it quite a bit. I have a lot of fun playing it. It's a game I'm definitely glad it's in my collection. There's just a couple of caveats to the game, like I mentioned. It's a little bit of a luck fest. Sometimes the luck can just not work in your favor. And sometimes that luck can so much work against you that there's just no way to come back from it. And again, that can be a little bit of a problem for some players. If you're okay with that, and if you understand that, you're looking for a really good game here. You're looking at a game that plays great solo, a game that plays great for 2 players, up to 3 players maybe, and it's also a game that can be played competitively. This is also one of those games that is going to grow with you. This is a game that's going to take a long time to master because, yes, I mentioned luck a few times because I want you to understand it and not grab this game and get mad at me when you say this game has a lot of luck to it. Because, yes, it's there, but there's also a lot of skill to this game. Understanding the way the event cards can come out and understand the events are going to slowly ramp up, understanding that certain acts are going to be more dangerous to do certain things versus others, and understanding that there's certain things that you need to work on, certain resources you need to work on, certain chemistry and synergy between the heroes, and understand that there's ways to make those things work in your favor. Those are all things going to add to the mastery level of the game. This is also one of those games that has a lot of little persnickety rules that makes this one of those games that you want to play a lot. This is one of those games that's not going to be as good for the omni gamers, the players who like to own hundreds of board games and like to play a game maybe once or twice every couple of months and pull it out, because you're going to start forgetting some of the rules. Because there's little minute rules that are very easy to forget or easy to confuse or just not remember when you're playing the game. And it's not horrible. But if you want to know what I had to do to make sure myself as an omni gamer doesn't forget these rules, I actually had to go to Microsoft Word and type out a 4-page document that goes over the turn structure line by line by line to make sure that when I play this game, because I only pull it out once a month to make sure that I'm not forgetting the rules, not making any mistakes versus little things such as the fact that these guys are defeated on a 4, 5, or 6, whereas your heroes survive on a 4, 5, or 6. Kind of an opposite thing right there. Remembering how the chaos markers work, understanding that when you enter a chaos space, your hero actually can't take any more actions at that space anymore, and that the chaos space is going to move. Little things like that, learning that the way that the villagers turn from villagers defiant into fleeing villagers is only going to happen when the space is completely empty. Understand that when a zombie moves in the first time, you're only going to lose the Defiant marker. Understand that fleeing villagers are only going to be gobbled up when a zombie enters the space. There's nothing else there. Understand that's going to be 2 points of infection versus 1 point of infection. Understand that, yes, even though they get gobbled up and it doesn't create a combat, they're still going to possibly go to the hospital and you're still going to get a save roll for them. So there's lots of little minute rules that are very easy to forget in this game. And again, I wrote up a 4-page document for myself so I don't forget it. But I think this is one of those games that if you're one of those players who likes to take a game and learn and master it and play it, at least once a week, you're going to be fine with it. You're not going to have any problems. It's not going to create any heartache or any heartburn for you. You're not going to forget those little dinky rules. I'm basically talking about the omni gamers, the ones who are out there who own lots of games, like to memorize the rules for lots of games, and they're going to have a tendency to forget things. Those are the players I'm going to recommend you go and type up that 4-page document so you don't forget the little idiosyncrasies of the rules. So, bottom line here, I enjoy the game. I just want to give you the caveat that this game does have a little bit of luck factor to it. But if you're looking for a zombie game in our modern environment that is not a Hollywood zombie, more of a classic horror Romero feel, which is great considering this is Halloween time approaching up, you can't go wrong with Dawn of the Zeds. Hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed this video series. If you have any comments or questions, make sure you leave them down in the YouTube comments down below. I'll be sure to get to them as quickly as I can. You can also feel free to email me at off-the-shelf board game reviews. That's otsbgr@gmail.com. Be sure to answer emails as quickly as I can. If you enjoy this channel, think about supporting the channel over on Patreon. That's patreon.com/otsbgr. This channel is 100% sponsor free, which means everything that you see on this channel comes out of my own pocket. You can help me compensate for some of my costs here by thinking about tossing $1 over in the tip jar over on Patreon. Also, like and subscribe to the channel. Your subscriptions really do matter here. Click that like button, click that subscribe button. As always, thanks for watching.